HBCU Digest Radio, welcome back to Distinguished Conversations with members of the historically Black college and university community. Today, a really unique turn for us on the show. We got two distinguished Black professionals who are really making waves with a petition to try to get the awareness up in Hollywood about equity and accessibility for African American voices and leaders in the reality show industry. With us, we have Morehouse College alumnus Wendell, Holland, and J'Tia Hart, a graduate of the FAMU-FSU, Florida State University College of Engineering. So, brother and sister, great to have you on today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for having us. Yes.
Let's first focus on the petition itself. So, what you guys are looking for is a multi-tiered approach to how reality shows and networks by proxy can be more equitable towards African American representation, not just on the competition side, but also in the production and showrunner side. What kind of created the wherewithal within you guys to say, hey man, there's a problem here and we really need to address it? And J'Tia, we'll start with you with that one.
So I think when you grow up in the African American community, and when you have the opportunity to experience the full richness of, HBCUs and being in classes with people who look like you and learning tough subjects, it just really instills you with a sense of pride when you go out into the world. And so for Wendell and I, we were both on Survivor, and what we saw on Survivor was not the rich and full experience of the African American community that we grew up in and we were nurtured in. And so really I've always had an issue with how Survivor portrays us, and kind of like we are an afterthought, we're not full characters. And really for me, it was the murder of George Floyd. And also we saw other people like Bachelor Nation, African American Bachelor came out. And so really the time was right. We had been talking about it for a while. We had a Black Survivor alumni group. We were actually planning a Black Survivor picnic for May that got canceled, and the time was really right. And it was something that we could do with our unique experience to go to, a top show on a network, on the top network, and really affect change. So that's what really started this movement.
So Wendell, you actually competed in it and won the show. Can you talk about that experience? But was it an extra layer of competition in the sense that you're dealing with, I guess, the rigor of being a show participant, but then also, the social or the racial elements of it? How tough or how much of a part of your turn on the show did that play a factor?
For sure. We, as Black castaways, we are playing this dual game per se, where we're playing Survivor in this made up universe, but we're also playing I am the one of in my case one of three Black castaways out there, but you're always in the extreme minority. I was the only Black male out there my season, so it felt like I did have extra hurdles to overcome. Especially because I was out there as the only Black male, but didn't see a lot of Black producers out there. And even in confessionals, it's like I feel like I would have been able to say more and be more understood and digested. And then my story might have been a more full story had I been even sometimes speaking to a Black producer in my confessionals or something like that. So, yes, you're playing a dual game out there. I heard the N-word out there. I had to kind of, as a proud Black man, I had to say, you know what, I'm going to say something to this person. But then as someone competing for $1 million, I also had to truly navigate how I checked that person and said, yo, that's not all right. But I still had to be cognizant of the fact that I want to win this game. So, there are so many layers to being a Black player out there. And fortunately, my first season, I was able to get through and win. Then I came back for the last season that was on season 40. And I experienced what many Black castaways experienced in my second time, where I feel like I was portrayed not in the best light, and they only used certain parts of me, and they kind of watered me down to where I kind of look like the angry black guy or the arrogant black guy. So now I've seen both sides of the coin, and that's why for me it's like, okay, I truly feel like I can speak to this because I've experienced it as a winner. We only have had a few black winners out of 40 seasons, but also I've seen the other side where it's kind of nasty, and I'm ready to use my voice. And at this time, it is a perfect opportunity for CBS and Survivor to, harness the movement that's going on in the country and say we're a part of this beautiful movement.
Let's talk about the term that you guys have used a couple times so far in the conversation, portrayal and characters. A lot of folks look at reality television and think that, okay, well, save for editing or, editing of certain scenes together, that what you're seeing is generic and authentic. But I would imagine that's true to a point, but can you talk about both of you, a little bit more about how those portrayals or how those quote unquote characters are formed? Do you have any say in that? Or is it just, we're seeing on the back end as every other fan who watches is seeing on the back end?
So I can absolutely speak to that. My portrayal was not favorable, to say the least. And I think everybody should recognize that in every reality TV show, there is a story editor position. So this is a story that they are trying to tell. They do a lot of filming. They have a lot of tape. In Survivor, they actually tape 24/7. So they have to edit that down. And it is up to a story editor and the producers to put together a coherent and entertaining, key there, story to present, because it's about advertising. You present something that people want to watch. That means you can sell ads. So really put together your story. As far as Survivor, they do a lot of background research on you. When you go on Survivor, you do psychological testing, you go through many, many interviews. They know a lot about you. I don't want to say they know everything, but really they know, your background, what pushes your buttons, and they go out there with that knowledge. And then you are in a very high stress situation. In my case, I hadn't drunk water in 3 days, and of course, in everybody's life, you have stress and how you deal with it. And in my case, they chose to take moments that built towards me and also, did some manipulation. But it's all things that I did, but you have to realize this is a very high stress situation, and then they pick and choose what they want to show. In my case, I was lazy, crazy, and stupid. And that is the story that they showed. And sometimes I am lazy and sometimes I do get upset. I'm not crazy, but that is what they chose to portray. In my everyday life, I went off to college and started at FAMU-FSU College of Engineering when I was 15 years old. If you ask anybody about me, they'll say I'm a nerd. They will not say, I'm lazy or crazy. And I just thought it was poor choice that they just decided to shoehorn me into that. And I felt like they did that because there was other characters that they cared more about. So I could not be portrayed as having anything to do with my own destiny. I was a side character, and so it was easier to write off my actions as not being in control at all. So yes, they're story editors. They make you a story. You have no say in what your character is. So it's like, you're an actor and you sign up and you don't know what your role is. You have no say in your role, and you just find out along with everybody else.
And Wendell, you said it was a similar experience for you, at least on your second turn on the show, right?
Well, on my first season, they portrayed me as a very social player. Like my threat was everyone loved me or something like that. But I'm highly educated and intelligent, and I think that I made some great strategic moves out there. But instead, they made my ally Dominic they made him seem like he was the super strategic one in the alliance, and I was the social one in the alliance. Ultimately, we both got to the end, and I won. So even in my first season, I was still the hero because I was the winner, but I'm like, man, there was so much more that I did that wasn't shown. Fast forward to this last season, season 40, and I thought I was the same Wendell that was out there on season 36, Ghost Island, but I was portrayed as this kind of like this arrogant jerk. I was given the Kanye edit, I'd say. And so when
some people would say you were given the Morehouse edit.
Oh, oh man, love it.
I'm messing with you, brother. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Threw me off. So yeah, I was given the Morehouse edit. But in honesty, like there was so much that I did out there. My profession is I build and design custom furniture, and so out there I built some of the best camps that Survivor has ever seen. Two of them.
I heard as such. I wanted to be on your season so I could be lounging.
Yeah, I made it amazing, and I had lots of friends out there and everything, and they focused on me doing things like in the challenge. I got the attention of the host. I'm like, hey Jeff, watch this, or hey Jeff, look at me, because in my first season, I won a puzzle, but the girl who was a few people over from me finished right after me, and she called him over, and he was to her first. So despite me finishing first, and I wasn't trying to argue the fact that I finished first, but it was clear to the viewers and everything, oh, Wendell finished his puzzle first. So fast forward to my next season, and I'm constantly trying to get his attention and stay in his ear. But instead, the way they kind of portrayed it was me showboating and things of that nature. And then another thing was there were conversations that I had that they didn't show, of me trying to work with people or me trying to work with one particular castaway, and they wouldn't show that conversation, but they'd show a conversation later, like after she basically said she's not going to work with me. So then I said, all right, well, if you want me to vote with you, then give me some fire tokens. It's basically a currency that was introduced into season 40. And I was like, all right, you can buy my vote. But I wasn't really, she couldn't buy my vote at that point, but I was blowing smoke because she showed me she wasn't going to vote with me. But anyway, we later in the day at tribal council where you vote people out, I told her, I said, hey, look, I tried to work with you and you didn't budge. And so essentially what they did was they didn't have the conversation of when we first got to the beach and I was literally trying to work with her. They showed me saying, hey, give me some fire tokens and I'll work with you. So they made it look like I was just trying to shake her down, and then essentially that was me, quote unquote, working with her. So they can pick and choose what they show, and anybody edited for 3 days, which then gets boiled down to a 41-minute episode. You can find anybody, any few, pieces of anything from that person to portray them in a negative light. And you can also take other people's conversations about that person and couple that with certain clips and really make them look like someone that they truly aren't. And that's how I felt I was portrayed.
It is.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So yeah, it's a common technique in reality TV called Frankenstein. So it's sort of like Frankenstein, but editing. And that's when they cut clips to make the point that they like to make. And we just want to say that it's not an individual story. It's not, oh, they just did this to J'Tia and Wendell. It's that they disproportionately do this to African Americans. There are many stories like this. And we just want to have a proportionally negative and positive views. They show us as that we're crazy, we're lazy, we're a workhorse, or we're stupid. And in our view, we're so much more than that. We're beauties, we're nerds, which is strategic masterminds, we're heroes, we're all of these things, and we want to see that on Survivor and on TV.
That's the interesting thing about it. So I think that that all of us would agree, Hollywood for a long time has had a narrative of black folks on screen, hypersexual, lazy, angry, there's a gamut that we recognize as how we've been depicted in cinema and television, right? And so I wonder, do you think about that going on TV? That everything I say, everything I do is going to try to be shaped through this prism, so let me do this to try to counteract that? Or are you charged with being as authentically you as possible and see where the chips fall?
You can't.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've seen people do both, and if you want to be successful on Survivor as a black or minority person, you have to like literally watch everything you say and do. You have to be very calculated. You have to think about every statement that's coming out of your mouth, because they as one of only a few out there, you're going to be targeted already, and usually early, and then the editors need a story for why you're targeted or whatever. So you have to really protect yourself, and it's almost like you have to assume the worst. Mm-hmm. And it's sad to say that, but the only way to protect yourself would be to assume the worst, and literally. But then it's like, what kind of a character or of a person are you? Are you just a plain Jane person that can't say anything, that can't stick up for himself, that can't? Then you're a target also. Right. So it's so tough. It's difficult.
Wendell and I.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Wendell and I specifically took a different tack, and clearly his was way more successful than mine, as he was a winner, and I think I was the fourth out on my season. But I think you run the risk, like Wendell said, that if you are reserved, then they ignore you. They cast for drama. They love drama out there. In my particular season, I felt like I was going down the tubes, and there was nothing I could do. My whole tribe, as a matter of fact, was going down the tubes. And I have a personal philosophy that I do not go gentle into that good night. And so if I was going, it was going down. And so, I gave them something to work with. And I thought about that afterward. I mean, that's an understatement. I threw everybody's rice in the fire, because I was thinking, if I'm not eating, if I'm going home, you ain't eating either. Nobody is eating if mama ain't eating. And I thought, what did I do afterwards? And I thought to myself, if a little black girl sees me as a nuclear engineer on TV, who cares if I'm throwing a temper tantrum? Who cares if I'm throwing a temper tantrum? Because I'm sure I am such a black unicorn to her or other people that they're just excited to see us. I mean, that's where I ultimately landed. But of course, clearly.
So let me ask you, but when we watch at home, we're rooting for you. Like, Black America's like, come on now. I understand.
I was like, come on now too.
I would imagine that adds to the pressure, right? Because the black folks are at home watching, like, don't do that. Don't you throw that rice.
Oh, absolutely. So I threw the rice after, so I was on a tribe particularly because it was the brains tribe. It was the smart people. And it's very interesting because I was up to me to do a puzzle for my team, and I totally blew it. And the pressure was on. You can see me literally melting down there. And so, yes, the pressure is on. And I did have to think about it. And I thought about the people I saw growing up. I didn't care if they did, I'm every time I watch a black TV show and there's a black, or a TV show and there's a black character, I'm rooting for them. I don't care what they do. It's very little they can do to, change my opinion. I can socialize it. I can rationalize it, that sort of thing. And, actually, after I threw the rice out, I did not go home, which was sort of the drama of my season. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the reason why my tribe was doing so poorly is because we had all brains and no muscle. And, that kind of put us at a very distinct disadvantage because we didn't have Wendell building us furniture out there on the island. But, I mean, I do always want to do good, but sometimes you just got to be yourself and be true to yourself. And for me, I was vengeful, and that's who I am, and I don't let people get over on me. So that's what led to that.
Let's talk
Sorry,
about
black people that I threw the rice out.
Well, let's talk about some of the elements of the petition. So two of them that stand out. You guys are asking for at least a third of contestants on every season to be Black, Indigenous, or people of color, and for equitable screen time and promotional events for those contestants, right? I think everybody of sound mind and harmonious intent can agree with that. What would you say to the folks that would suggest, what if not enough Black folks or people of color watch Survivor to make that a profitable venture for us? What if we're aiming at, we get a certain amount of people on every cast because, that's reflective of society, and we promote the people that the majority of our watching demographic who they want to see? Well, how do you respond to that?
Would you like to go first, J'Tia, or you want me to start?
Yeah, I got it. So for the past couple of seasons, Survivor actually has had, at least 13% African American and 30% Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Mm-hmm. And that's great. But I feel like right now Survivor is trying to hit a target demographic. But what we need to do, and I society has told Survivor and told media, is that we need to do better, because there are so many people in America who the only thing they know about Black people is what they see on TV.
What they see on TV, right?
So, yeah. So what we're trying to do is maybe that, person who is in college who loves Survivor becomes a police officer. And what he remembers is how Black people are crazy. I saw it on Survivor. And so that is the attitude he goes to work with. And so it's really not about just Survivor. It's that this is how people get their information. And it is important. Representation matters. Mm-hmm. And it's about a bigger societal good. And we're at a point in time where people want their media and they want their TV to be accountable and to have the ethics and the social standards. Social standards are changing, so y'all need to change too.
Wendell?
If I may add, I think J'Tia hit the nail on the head with, if people are watching, and if Survivor speaks to like middle America and they don't have many Black people, then then Survivor has almost a duty or an obligation or the ability to change the narrative and have them see Black people a different way. So there's that. Then go ahead. Oh, sorry. So there's that, first of all. But then secondly, just because say Survivor says, you know what, a lot of Black people don't watch, our demographic is middle America or wherever it is. Mm-hmm. My question is, why is that your target? Why not? How about we target other people? After I won Survivor, I would speak everywhere. I spoke at the big utility here in Philadelphia, Pico. I spoke at churches, schools. I spoke all over the place. As a winner of Survivor, one of 4 Black winners, I was so happy and so excited. I accomplished my dream, and I basically wanted to shout it at the mountaintops. Mm-hmm. So if Survivor, but what I noticed was Survivor didn't help facilitate me when I'm going to these places, as far as giving me promotional materials, even releasing clips, my own clips of me doing things and challenges and stuff. I had to jump through a bunch of hoops to get clips, and ultimately they would only give me like a 15-second commercial from one of my of one of my shows. So if they were to help facilitate people that are on the show, that go into the community and say, hey guys, look, you can be on Survivor, and if they allow us to engage our community a little better, or even if they market our community or go through Black media outlets or anything like that, then they might open up the market a little bit. So it's not, hey, only a small amount of Black people watch Survivor, so we're only going to put a small amount of Black people on there. How about a smaller percentage of Black people watch, but we're going to change that and make it so all of America can watch. Mm. And my last brief point is, just because there are, say, 13% of black folks in America, if that's the percentage of black people in America, that doesn't mean that we can't create this amazing, almost perfectly diverse, created world. This is a utopia. This is not the real world that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a created space. So why can't we change this space to reflect a beautiful, diverse cast, as opposed to just saying, you know what, 13% of black folks in America, so we'll put 1 to 2 to 3 black folks on the island. No, how about we make it truly equitable and fair? So I see people out there that look like me, that I can talk to, and when I'm talking to a black castaway, it's if we're the only 2 black castaways, then the other 18 folks are like, oh, those 2 black people, we got to get them out of there. But if we have a good mass or a critical mass, then it's like, you know what, I could talk to a black castaway and not feel like I'm ostracizing myself. I could talk to a white or Latino or any castaways and not feel some type of way. So it's if Survivor takes the initiative or walks side by side with us in changing this narrative and this portrayal and the casting, then they can start affecting the viewership who watches Survivor, and also they can change people's opinions about black people or minorities in America.
You guys also are asking for mental health resources, or I shouldn't say asking for, demanding mental health resources for cast members as they navigate their experiences on the show and perhaps off, including more black leads or people of color leads in production, and a zero tolerance policy towards racism. Now, Wendell, you referenced this earlier in the show. How prevalent have you heard from other participants, and even in your own experiences, was racism obviously among other cast members, but and obviously among the production value, but was that a significant layer of your experiences on the show?
As a black person going out on an island with what you know is this cross section of America, you have to believe that there will be people that, or there could be people that are prejudiced or don't necessarily like you, or you just never know when you're going into this situation. So automatically you're kind of, you got to feel people out. Just like, it's like being black in America. I mean, we play Survivor every day, right, when we navigate anything in America. So it's the same thing. You don't know. So there's that hurdle. But then if you actually, when you start to see microaggressions, or when you start to hear like racial slurs, then it's like, wow, these assumptions that I might have had, they're now validated by actual actions. And I've heard from numerous castaways that have heard racial slurs out there, and they might be the only black man or the only black woman on the island. And when there's like a white man that might be one of the favorites of production saying these things, then it's hard to get production to even defend you. And so it's nothing new, and it is something that's been happening for since Survivor started 20 years ago. And but we understand that Survivor tries to stay current with the times and ahead of the curve even. And so it's like, all right, guys, you see what's going on now. Now is your opportunity to take actual action and make change to rectify all that's been going on in the last 20 years.
And it's bad. So Survivor has handled issues that they've had with gender. There was a touching incident that happened on season 39. And also in season 33, they had an issue with an LGBTQ contestant who was made to reveal that he was transgender by another contestant. So they dealt with those issues head on, and we're just asking them to acknowledge that they have an issue with racism and to address that as well. So you handled the gender issue, you handled the LGBTQ issues, handle the race issue, because our issues are life and death.
In the end, is there a timetable that would suggest to you, or that you are hoping to see these changes by which they would be made? And is there a certain level of influence you guys would like to have, along with other folks who are organizing the petition, that you would like to have in helping the networks to make these kind of changes? And that's our last question, but I think it's the big one. How long do you expect this to take, and how much influence do you want to have in this?
So we're at a unique time right now because the fall season is not going to have Survivor in its lineup. Mm-hmm. So there is an opportunity to make changes right now. We have been in contact with CBS, and we have a meeting set up where we are going to present the issues that we have in our petition and ask for concrete changes. So for me, I hope to see changes made before Survivor airs again. And I would definitely like to be involved. I'd like to see them put together, if not diversity and inclusion in some of the initiatives that we set out in our petition, but I also think they should establish a council of Black entertainment executives that don't necessarily have to do with the show, and also former players, so that we can review the actions that they have taken.
I agree. I think because there's no fall season of Survivor, and because there is such, I guess, civil unrest right now, they have they can do it now. They have the time, and they can make the change as far as casting a very diverse cast. Although they've been doing better the last few seasons, but continue that. But also to see some changes behind the camera. I think they have the time to make those changes for whenever season 41 will film and air. So, and also as far as us being a part of it, I echo J'Tia's sentiment. We will be speaking with CBS next week, and because we love this show and this game, I know I'm willing to be hands-on with it in whatever capacity they need me. I have passed along names and casting, and try to get people in front of the producers and whatnot. But I'd love to be hands-on because this is something that I love, and that's why we're speaking out. It's not because we hate this thing that we've been watching for so long. It's because we love it, and we want this thing that we're connected to do better. That's how I treat everybody in life. If I'm willing to communicate to you that you can do better, it means that I care for you, and that's the same with Survivor.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, man. Please let us know how we can find the petition and read more information about what you guys are, for which you're advocating, and how we can find both of you guys on social media to follow up with what you guys are working for.
Well, Jared, since you asked, if you want to sign the petition, you can go to my website, jtiaphd.com/TSSO for the Soul Survivor organization. And there you can find links to some of the panels that we've done. We had a panel, Tribes and Tribulations, with a group of African-American survivors talking about our experiences. And also you can find a link to the petition.
And for me, I guess you could find me on any of my socials. Wendell Holland on Instagram and Twitter. And my furniture company is Beeve Unlimited. That's BEVE Unlimited on Instagram. You can find us and find the cool stuff that I build.
And it's really cool stuff. Thank you for having us. I enjoy hearing about what's going on in HBCUs. I miss Tallahassee. I went back last fall. And my grandparents are Rattlers, so I want to give a shout out to the Rattlers. Got to do that.